Our standout guests today are Dr. Nick and Nat, naturopathic doctors, Menopause Society certified practitioners, the founders of Durham Natural Health Center, a wellness clinic located in Ajax, and the creators of the Empower Midlife Hub, a community for women navigating menopause. They have helped thousands of women transition from feeling tired, irritable, and depleted to feeling empowered and confident in their body. Together, Dr. Nick and Nat are passionate about advocating for women's health. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you are here.
Thank you for having us. We're so excited for this conversation today.
Let's start with a simple but yet so much important question. What is perimenopause?
Yeah. Well, it's a transition we're all going to move through. If you were born with ovaries, you will move through this transition. And it is the decrease in our fertility and the loss of ovarian function that happens at the end of our reproductive life. So, some people will affectionately call it, reverse puberty. When we think about puberty, where hormones are entering our system, perimenopause is kind of the reverse. Our hormones are starting to leave our system. So it's a hormonal transition that we're all going to move through.
Interesting. And why do I feel like many other women that this topic is taboo? Because we don't talk about it.
No, we don't. We do such a beautiful job preparing women for, their first period and puberty, and if they go through a pregnancy and postpartum and sort of what to experience then. And then when it comes to the end of this time when our hormones are starting to leave our body, we really don't talk about it enough. It's starting to get some attention, which is really beautiful. I would say in the last couple of years, we're seeing a lot more discussion around it, a lot more awareness around it, which is just so nice to see. Um, and I'm so grateful that we're here having this conversation because I think the more that women can understand what's going on and feel empowered about the changes that are happening in the body, the better prepared they are, the better they can advocate for themselves to get the resources and support that they need.
Yeah, and you know, you're right to say it because so many women I speak to describe, the changes they are going through. They might feel emotionally and physically different, but we don't have a language as for what it is, why we are going through that. So, and I feel also there is this connection between perimenopause, menopause, and aging. And we know that in our society, ageism, when it comes to women, can be very taboo. So, do you think there is this relationship between ageism and the fact that a woman's body evolved with time?
Yeah, I think there's a lack of education, there's a lack of maybe understanding, and I think it's so easy to blame a lot of the symptoms on other things, particularly in midlife. So when women are feeling more emotional or more anxious, or maybe their sleep is disrupted, like it's so easy to blame it on stress, kids, career. So we're so quick to kind of push it to something else. I think twofold. Maybe we don't want to acknowledge that our body is changing, but we also haven't been given the tools to equip us and to understand that that's actually what we're going to move through. So I think it's a little bit twofold.
So, what is actually happening, hormonally speaking, that creates that changes, within our body and the feeling of not quite recognizing ourselves?
That's what women say all the time in our offices. I don't feel like myself anymore. And that's often what happens. And what's happening is the hormones are starting to shift. So what once was a very predictable ebb and flow of hormones over a 28, 30-day time frame now becomes a lot more unpredictable. Progesterone levels start to decline, estrogen becomes very erratic, so very up and down, and it's in that up and down nature of these hormones that we can get very symptomatic. And it's subtle for women because it doesn't just become that overnight. It starts to shift and starts to change, and it can get louder as time goes on. As we approach that final menstrual period, women become more symptomatic before they reach that end stage. But Perimenopause is the years leading up to menopause. And so those hormones are shifting, they're changing, they're declining, and it can happen 7 to 10 years before the onset of menopause.
So going through this roller coaster of emotions, hormonal changes, and not knowing who we are anymore, wondering if we are losing our mind, that can last for 7 years.
It can, but we're both firm advocates that with the right support, it does not need to be a time that you like grin and bear it through, right? There are options for women, there are supports for women, and this really can be a time when, with the right support, you can really feel amazing. And so it doesn't have to be this 7 to 10 year nightmare. It really can be supported properly, and women can really feel great.
We are going to talk about it, what can we do and how can we get the support that we need in order to navigate through this transition. Something that I keep in mind as part of the work that I do, I work with women executive, women leaders, and especially for us millennial women, we were sold the hustle culture, right? And this a hustle culture got us successful. I mean, we have to say it, right? We have to acknowledge it. But at some point, the hustle no longer work. And as high achievers, we are so used to push through. So we push through, the tiredness, all the symptoms that we have been talking about, because this is the only thing that we know, pushing through, getting things done, and then jumping into the next one and the next one. But at some point, I feel like there is this internal battle between our mind, the mindset, our intellect, the way we have always operated, and our body, who is telling us a different story, but we don't know, we don't understand that story yet, right? As we talked about. And so there is this internal battle that is draining, taking a lot of energy out of us, trying to keep pushing an old model while the body requires a transition. So, how can we approach that internal battle and smooth it in a way that it becomes more manageable for us, that put us women in a position where we can manage this transition as opposed to being in a perpetual state of confusion and internal fight.
Yeah, and I think, you illustrated that beautifully, that I think we can be so programmed to wanna just keep pushing through and pushing and ignoring and blaming it on every other thing but our hormones, but I always say that midlife needs to be this really beautiful opportunity where if we set the stage for supporting your body through this transition, you can really thrive. And this looks like we can no longer cut our sleep. Like, we need to honor her 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, and for women, that is oftentimes the first thing that we will cut because we have a big list of things to do and kids to take care of and work that needs to happen and aging parents, and the list goes on, and we all know it. So it's honoring, like, I always say that that's the foundation. Sleep is the foundation. Like, we need to honor good quality sleep so that you have the energy and resiliency to do the other things required to support your health. And some of the other things can be, moving our bodies, making sure we prioritize exercise, make sure we take some downtime and we honor what our nervous system is moving through. Make sure that we have time for joy and social connection and time with friends and passions and hobbies, and it's not all just our to-do list.
Yeah.
So it's sort of taking this, well-rounded approach to supporting you through it, and that's sort of the lifestyle stuff, and then there's, like, the medical management of it, and talking through, if hormone replacement therapy is something we wanna consider, or are there targeted supplements we want to discuss.
Hmm. A lot of women in this phase describe also becoming less
Yes.
tolerant of noise, overload, difficult people, situations they used to navigate without a second thought, right? But it's like our level of tolerance for all those kind of situations is lowering as well, right? So
Yep.
what
Yes.
is happening physiologically? Like, is that something that we can push through again? Or is that something that we need to learn to listen to, but what do we do with this information?
Well, it's that our resiliency to stress decreases through this time. And so we become more vulnerable to the impacts of stress. And so when you think about noise or external stimuli, those are stressors, physical stressors on the body, right? So there's a reason we want to turn the volume down. There's a reason we want quiet. It's because our nervous system can't handle the stress like it once did. And women could push through that, but it's such an opportunity to listen to your body and to honor what it needs. And it really needs us to be prioritizing rest and downtime and managing our stress, especially the ones we can control. Right? Not all stressors we can get rid of, but there are some that maybe, we can reevaluate, we can say not right now, we can say no, right? And we can honor those boundaries and we can honor what our body really needs so that we can better manage stress because what women are feeling is real. Those
Yeah.
symptoms are real when we're not managing it as well.
And you're talking about boundaries, and I feel like in the past
Mhm.
few years, setting boundaries has been a trending topic on the internet. But we don't realize beyond, the mental aspect of setting boundaries, the importance of setting boundaries, not just for you to feel better and feel good about it, but also to help your body to feel better and to rest and, to unplug and stay away from stress. 2 years ago, I was pregnant, and as I was sharing the symptom, and I didn't know it, and I was sharing, the symptoms of what I was going through to one of my colleagues. And that's interesting because she told me, Darine, I don't want you to freak out, but it's probably perimenopause. And I was like, oh, and this is actually the first time ever I heard about perimenopause. And I was like, what's that? And but I didn't dig further because shortly after I found out I was pregnant. We understand now that perimenopause is the stage before the menopause, because when she told me, oh, it's probably perimenopause, I was like, no, I'm not 50. I cannot have a menopause. So that's probably something else, right? The confusion. So
Mhm,
what's the difference between the perimenopause stage and the menopause stage? That's the first question.
mhm.
And the first question to that is, why do we believe that perimenopause and menopause is for women in their 50s plus?
Great
Yeah.
question. Great question. So the average age of menopause is between 45 and 55. And menopause is defined once you've gone an entire calendar year. So you've gone 365 days without a period. That is your day of menopause. Every day thereafter, you're considered postmenopause.
So
And most women go through that, like 45 to 55, like Natalie said, that's the normal range for menopause. The average age is 51 or 52. So that's why a lot of women associate their 50s with menopause because most women will lose their period around that time frame.
okay.
However, perimenopause is that slow decline leading into menopause. So by the time we've hit menopause, we've reached a new state of lowered hormones. So our body's no longer producing estrogen or progesterone, but it's going to try for the years before that. So the hormones are sort of declining. We'll start to see in perimenopause where the cycles start to change. So if you used to always have a predictable 28-day cycle, let's say, you might start to notice that, like, oh, it's happening every 21 days or every 35 days or every 45 days, and it's bouncing around a little bit at the beginning. In late perimenopause, we'll start to go months without a period. So you'll go 2 months, 3 months without a period, then, oh, all of a sudden I get a period. So I haven't crossed over into menopause yet because I haven't gone a full calendar year, but I'm definitely in that, like, late transition stage. And that can start 7 to 10 years before that last period. So if you're someone who goes through menopause at the age of 45, this could be beginning in your mid to late 30s. For many women, it starts usually in their 40s, but it's not impossible for it to be starting earlier if you are somebody who's going to transition into menopause earlier.
So when we are in our mid 30s, because ultimately we will get there,
Yeah.
is there anything that we can do in order to slow the process, ensure that we push back the perimenopause by a few years? Is there anything that we can do to prevent that to happen?
No, and you don't want to. Like, I always tell women, like, this is a transition that is normal and natural. We don't need to suffer through it, but we don't need to delay it or change it. This is something that's gonna happen. This your 30s is a beautiful opportunity to get your habits in check. Focus on how you're sleeping, focus on how you're managing stress, focus on your nutrition, your exercise routine. These are the pillars that are going to set you up for better health in midlife, right? So, this is such a beautiful time for women to explore that aspect and really get honest with themselves around how they're showing up in those different avenues.
Okay. So basically, it's having a healthy lifestyle. I feel like having a healthy lifestyle is the answer to almost anything, perimenopause, wellness, well being, mental health, physical health.
I truly believe it is. I think health gets to be simple. I think we like to overcomplicate it. And it's really about these foundational lifestyle pillars. You'll read about, fancy supplements and biohacking this, and all patients come in and say, "Should I try this, fancy new supplement?" And I'm like, "Well, if we're not majoring in the majors, those minors aren't going to make like a huge difference." So those majors are nutrition, sleep, stress management, and getting those things,
Exercise.
exercise, getting those like key pillars in place are really important. And your midlife years, so your 40s and 50s, which is why I love working with women in their 40s and 50s, will set the trajectory for aging.
Oh.
So, what we do in those years will set up how our 70s, 80s, and 90s are going to look. So most of us say we want to travel the world when we retire. We want to run after our grandkids. We want to be able to hike mountains. We want to do all these fun and exciting
We want
things.
to be.
We want to be independent when we're 80. We don't want to be reliant on a walker or cane or something like right? We want to be independent. Guess when that starts happening, and guess when we can have a really beautiful influence. That doesn't we don't start that training at 75. We start that training at 45, 35. Like, the younger we start building and developing these habits, the better.
But then, the reality, I think, for us women is a little bit different. I understand all that you're saying, and I strongly believe in it. But the mid 30s is when women, most of us, we are at the peak of our career, right? So we are in a phase where the world, the family, the society, the workplace is asking a lot from us, right? Is asking a lot of output from us. And then we find ourselves in a situation where we want to also be able to do everything that you just said, having like healthy habits, a healthy routine, healthy lifestyle. And again, so I talked about the internal conflict earlier, but now it's like an internal conflict with
Yeah.
what society, family, the workforce, the workplace expect from us, and what we are trying to create and protect for us. So, where do we find the balance if there is any?
Yeah, and it's tricky, and I've walked that walk. Nick and I in our late 30s were, telling patients we should be doing all these things, but we hadn't embodied it because we were very much in that season. So I have so much empathy for that mom with kids and a career and all the things, and you're just trying to get through the day. Like, I have so much empathy for what that season of life can look like. But I think it comes back to that conversation you had around boundaries, and it's getting really clear about, you know, honoring and just saying no to certain things so you can say yes to you. And sometimes we have to be really firm in our no's because if we say yes to this thing, then I'm saying no to me. And if I want these things, and I think what happens in midlife for a lot of women is they hit this pivotal point where they can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
And they can't keep pushing through and they can't keep burning the candle at both ends and they can't keep relying on fast food or whatever it is. Like they can't keep doing the same habits because they don't feel well. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes women getting to this critical point that then they go, whoa, 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 enough is enough. And what I hope your listeners take away from this is like, don't get to that point. Like, don't get to that point where it's like, oh my gosh, I have to do a total overhaul because I don't feel good. And this can start with like really small micro changes. This doesn't have to be hour-long gym routines. This can be just like going for a walk a few days a week if that's all we have capacity for right now. This could be honoring going to bed half an hour earlier and making that your priority. So it doesn't have to be these like ideals and perfect routines. I think it's just about like small changes and consistency.
If there is, we know how it can become overwhelming, even trying, to implement wellness routine, healthy habits, that can become overwhelming. So I like your approach of trying tiny little changes here and there, going to bed earlier, maybe 30 minutes earlier. It sounds very manageable. um but if there is one single thing that women should prioritize to get started, and to put their first step forward, when it comes to preparing ourselves to age well through this transition, what would that be?
I have my answer. I would say, and this might be far for some women to get to, but I would say start to think about how this is going to be part of your lifestyle, but it's strength training. It's start figuring out lifting weights that's like so important for a healthy aging and independence and bone health and mental strength and grit. And there's so many benefits to strength training. Now, I recognize I'm saying that to some women who maybe are very sedentary right now, and that's going to feel far from where we're at. So I would say any movement is good movement. But once we start to build the habit and the routine of exercise, I would think about how do you continue to evolve that pattern where you're eventually doing strength training a couple times a week.
Oh, a couple of times a week. How many
Yeah,
times?
like start with 2. Twice a week is a great starting place. Great starting place. I think we do this a lot with health, right? We have these ideals of where we think things need to be, and we get paralyzed in inaction because it feels so daunting. And what Nat and I are such firm believers of, and where we know that health exists, is with consistency. So I always tell women pick what feels doable today, given the season of life that you're in. And can you commit to that for 6 months to a year? Right. So if it's strength training 2 times a week, could we see ourselves doing that 6 months to a year from now? If it's going for a walk and we decide we're going to do a 30-minute walk 3 times a week, can we do that for 6 months to a year? Because that's going to be a lot more walks than being paralyzed and in action because it feels too daunting to show up at the daily commitment we thought we had to make.
I like that. I like that. You make it sound very, I don't want to say easy, but very doable. I like that.
Yeah, important.
On your website, you mentioned that 46% of women feel completely unprepared for this stage of life. So I'm glad we are having this conversation.
Right?
And also that 4 in 10 say they feel alone navigating it. How can we um, stop this
Yeah. I think it's this.
loneliness,
I think
loneliness?
this. I think it's conversations like this and opening like what Natalie and I see in practice is that I'm having these conversations one-on-one in my office, right? With one woman and then they leave and the next woman comes in and we're having the same conversations. But if we can open up the floor and have conversations like this where we can have more women who are hearing about it not in a doctor's office, right?
Mm.
But hearing about it from a podcast or hearing about it from their girlfriend who listened to a podcast who decided to share it with them, like this is, I think, how we change it.
Yeah, because maybe a lot of women are reluctant from talking about it because, as you said, you are in the doctor office, and being in the doctor's office implies maybe unconsciously that there is something not right with you, right? That you are trying to fix or you are trying to find a remedy. But being part of a community can make a much bigger difference. I strongly believe in it. So, can you tell us a little bit more about the Empower Midlife Hub?
Yeah, so this is our community group for women navigating perimenopause and menopause. And this was bred just so women don't have to feel alone through this transition. So it's a community of women who come together twice a month. We have conversations, we have some in person events if you're local. And it's a really beautiful container for women to both learn about the transition, feel supported by a community of women walking through this transition with them, and then more importantly, hold each other accountable to making the health changes and habits that they know they need to make. Health, we said, is not sexy, it's not fancy, it's like the boring habits we know we should be doing every day that are sometimes hard to commit to. But when we have a community of women cheering us on and supporting us through that, it can make all the difference in the world.
Love it. And you don't have to, maybe bottom line, you don't have to do it alone and you don't have to go through it alone. I think it's
Mhm,
important for women to understand that and to hear that message.
mhm, mhm.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
I would just say that if you are in this stage of life and you are feeling a shift in your body, it's important to advocate for yourself. Not unfortunately, not every clinician is an expert in perimenopause or menopause, and so it may take advocating for yourself with a few different clinicians to get the support or response that you need. But if you feel like something is off, you're probably not wrong, and you likely just need to continue to advocate to get the right support.
Thank you, Dr. Nick. Dr. Nat, anything else?
I just want women to know that it can be a really powerful season, and it's not one that you need to struggle through. With the right support, you can really thrive through this transition. So I want women to hear that, and if you are struggling, know that there are options for support. We have a team of clinicians at our clinic who support women through this transition all the time. So, like Nick said, advocate for yourself, but know that this can be a really beautiful time of your life.
I love that reframe. This is the first time I hear it, actually. Aw.
Right? I feel like the internet is great because it's talking about it, but it's really doom and gloom, and it's
Yeah.
fear. It's like women are fearing it or nervous about it, and I'm like, "We don't have to be."
Oh my God. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your willingness to sharing so much during this conversation.